Alright, this is the M2 Cup at Navarra. If this car's driving you a little bit nuts, hopefully I can help you out a bit. Want to jump in, we're going to do a quick track guide with a lot of details. There's a few quick principles that I want to point out before we jump into this flying lap here. And the main things to think about on this track right now is weight transition and trail braking. Not overshooting your entries. A lot of the corners on this track are much slower on entry than you would think they are. And the big thing is it requires you to hit those apexes and be calm with very smooth exits. So focusing on putting the weight on the front tires, so trail braking without hitting the ABS, and slowing down a little bit earlier than you think to have a good smooth exit out of the corners. Those are the three biggest things that you can do on this track. So let's jump into a lap. Let's talk about Sector 1, because this is in my opinion, very difficult piece of the track. This is the first time I've ever been on this track, so I was learning along with everybody else recently. But there's a few quick things here. Into turn 1, you don't want to position yourself too far left, too far right, but I find that just looking at this transition on the pavement, this is really sort of your big brake marker. This is your reference. Now you can see I'm getting on the brakes a little bit sooner, and what I like to do in this corner, I like to brake very light, very long. And what that does is it puts the weight of the car on the front tires, so I can turn and manipulate the car a lot more going into this corner. The rear is going to be light, but the car is going to be responsive through this. So you'll see I'm peaking at maybe 60%. And we're carrying all the way out to this outside curb, clipping that inside curb. And this is what I was talking about when I said don't overshoot your entries. You don't want to end up over here way off the road. You want to be right on this inside curb. So we're here, we touch that curb, and we get right onto that curb. And then we can walk all the way out, use this green a little bit, just don't go over this line or you'll get a 1X. Now through this part of the track, you have to be very cautious of traction control, because on this left-hander it can bite you, it can slow you down. Alright, so now exiting that corner, going into turn 4, you have to be just a little bit cautious. You don't want to take too much grass, you don't want to have too much steering angle, so you need to position the car far enough right to have a good exit through here without running into too much traction control. All the way out here, just don't cross over that white line or you get a 1X. And then through this corner here, this is where it goes back to that trail braking, putting the weight on the nose of the car, and then sort of balancing the car with the throttle and the brake. So if you're trying to load up the rear, use a little bit of throttle to get more grip onto the rear tires. If you're trying to get a little bit looser, put more weight on the front, turn a bit more, use a little bit of brake. Now, that's one of the best things you can do through there. We're not braking super hard. You can see it just trails in. And now we're maintenance throttle all the way through this. And then here again, do not be too fast. You can use a lot of this inside curb here. Being a little bit cautious on entry is really worth a lot here, because if you blow this too wide, it's 4 to 6/10 if you make a mistake here. So being a little bit cautious there. You notice very, very tentative on the throttle, just to make sure that we're not getting too much traction control cut. This is one of the biggest threshold braking points on the track, and this corner is a little bit open on exit, so you really want to be on that inside curb pretty early on your braking and turn-in, and then you can be very early and aggressive on throttle on exit. So right here, maintenance throttle, boom, right back to 100, use the green curb on exit, you can even touch a little bit of the grass if you need to. Now going into this corner, I like using the 100 as my braking reference. I brake a little bit after the 100, so we're just now passing it. It's on my side mirror. I'm getting into the brakes. This is going to be a full threshold braking zone, 90 to 95%. We need to be very tight on that inside curb. Don't wash too wide here. So boom, threshold braking, trailing now, trailing, roll into the throttle and flat. Through this corner here, you can stay flat, but the traction control does seem to cut a bit, so doing a little bit of a lift through there seems to be pretty helpful. And then going through this corner, a lot of threshold braking around 80%, that's going to trail off, so you're going to drag a little bit of that brake pressure to get better turn in, and then roll into that throttle without going too wide. If you cross over this white line, you will get a 1X and throw your lap away. And into this corner, this is one that I made a ton of mistakes on when I was trying to learn this track. It's a lot faster than you think. You can take a huge amount of speed into this. I think you can either take it in second or third gear. Some laps I did second, some laps I did third. This was my best lap, and I decided to downshift to second just to have a little bit more, I guess, more balance to the rear of the car so I wouldn't spin and get too much traction control cut. But I just had to be more cautious of rolling into the throttle on exit to not get too much traction control cut. So trail braking, and then you can see, kind of roll right back into the throttle and good to go. This braking zone, this is one that I screwed up a lot because this seems to be the best braking reference right here. You're pretty much thinking, oh, I'll brake as soon as I get to the red curb. What I found was I would brake actually at the second or third red curb, and that seemed to help me a ton through this corner because this is a very heavy 85-95% threshold braking corner. And then it turns into a pretty big trail brake as you clip that inside curve. So right here, I'm pretty much hitting almost that second, third red square of the curb before I really get into those brakes. Clip that inside curve, use all of the road on exit, keeping one tire in. So just to give you an idea, we're just a little bit left in. So not too much of the car is on the track here, and that's the goal. Use all of the exit, which gives you the least amount of traction control cut and the most exit speed out of the corner. Now, going into turn 14, this is an interesting one. You don't necessarily have to get super wide to the right, but what I do here is I get very wide right, clip it over as much as I can to get as far left into 15 as possible. And by positioning the car as far over to the right as reasonable, this allows me to get minimal amounts of traction control cut. So you can see I didn't have to lift very much, but I'm still very track left to open up this final corner to hit this apex, be very aggressive on exit, point the car as straight as I can while it's fighting for traction to minimize that traction control cut, and then we're across the line. So this was the best lap that I could have on Navarra. I ran a 1 minute 49.702, all purples across the board for me. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you want to trash talk my driving, please be as toxic as you want in the comments as well. I appreciate that too. Thank you guys.